And I'm going to do an official start. Welcome everybody to our Educator Spotlight Series, the first one of the 2022-23 school year. My guest today is Jon Bushen. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, how's it going?
Great, great. So I'm sure I probably butchered this, Jon, but he's a business teacher, a marketing teacher, a video teacher. But today and I probably missed one because he has like 5 or 6 preps, but today we're talking about design thinking. He's a design thinking teacher. I actually just finished up a session with some of Jon's coworkers that were training to do design thinking. Jon teaches a design thinking class, and he's been begging and asking to get more people trained to do this as well. Jon's been doing this with me since the beginning. So I started doing design thinking training in 2017, I think, 2018, somewhere around that, I think. And he's been doing it ever since. He's been a mentor for me and working with teachers because he's one of my first trainees. So today's topic is design thinking as a standalone course. So Jon has asked, and he finally was able to get a design thinking course in his school at Wyoming High School. So Jon, first of all, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and why don't you tell us a little bit about this class? I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
All right, well, so I'll share my screen a second if I can, so I can get over a little background on myself. Can we see that? Are we good, Eric?
Yes, we're good.
All right, so my name is Jon Bushen. I teach at Wyoming High School. I've been here for about 18 and a half years. I teach business, technology, multimedia, design thinking, whatever I'm told that year. It's changed over the 19 years. I've taught like 14 different classes, so it's kind of crazy. I've got CT certifications in business and radio and television, so that's kind of where I kind of fall into with my CT certs. But current classes right now I'm teaching is problem solving innovation. That's the class we're going to talk about a little bit today, so that we can go through kind of how we came up with this class, how we designed it, and how we've kind of worked with Eric and the ISD to make it a reality for our students here at Wyoming High School. I teach Video 1, I teach a broadcast production, and I teach a Wolf Den School, which was actually, our school store was brought about from design thinking. We didn't have one, and we design thinked around it, and we actually now have a 900 square foot store that operates 1 to 2 days a week that sells around $900 to $1,000 worth of merchandise and slushies, and kind of is bursting at the seams right now, where we kind of need some extra help other than me to actually run that store. So that's just a little background on that. So I don't know, Eric, if you want me to kind of just go through a little bit of kind of about the class. I think that's kind of the focus of what we have here. So I got a couple slides I just want to share as we go through. So first of all, we actually created a class called Problem Solving and Innovation. So it's not a design thinking title, but it's really looking at how can we solve problems using the design thinking process with high school students. So I teach 9th through 12th graders. Most of the students that we have in the class are 11th and 12th this year. Last year we had 10th through 12th. Doesn't really matter the grade. You could do this at a 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade level. Just kind of what your tasks are, what your problems are kind of defined by your maturity level of your students. So it's a little bit different, but it's definitely something that we have 2 classes this year of 35 students each. Last year we had 3 sections of 35 students each. And what we're trying to do is make sure that kids are learning how to solve problems in a different way using design thinking, but also apply that to their other classes and to the career workforce that they're going to be joining as soon as they graduate from high school. Just some basics. It's a little different. It's a team taught class. So we wrote it in our curriculum to give students basically a different level of seeing teachers collaborate. We hadn't team taught in our building for a long time, and we approached this, me and another teacher approached this and said, well, how can we do this where we can teach design thinking and students can learn that even 2 teachers that know each other pretty well can still look at this process and decide, hey, we still need to learn a lot more about each other, and we need to learn a lot about our students to actually teach this class well. So what we're doing this year is not the exact same as what we did last year, and every project that we do does not operate the exact same way. It does use the design thinking method, and it does use some basics that we've learned. As you see the design thinking model from the ISD on the screen there. But basically we're teaching kids how to use their mind and collaborate very well with one another and reflect back on the process, because what we're really looking at is, this quote came from Jeannie McGeer at the bottom, the classroom should reflect real world for which is preparing our students. That's what we're trying to do we're asking them to create, innovate, and be outstanding graduates, then our classroom should be creative, innovative, in a place where we should be able to learn. So we kind of decided that we were going to make their 4 main ideas for engagement and holistic learning, which would be creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. And for our students, that looks very different. How we do creativity, how we do collaboration, how we do critical thinking and communication is kind of broken up. But we figured that to do this, yes, we do have a curriculum. The curriculum is the design thinking method. That's the curriculum that we use. But we tackle real problems. So last year, we tackled the tardiness problem. Last year, we tackled a trades problem that kids just don't know about trades. We worked with food service to help to redesign a lunch challenge in the sense of getting better food and better methods of serving the kids at lunch. And we have some of those things implemented already at our high school. We have a tardy bell now that was created. That's a minute and a half ahead of time for kids to know that that's going to actually operate. So I won't go into so much that. I'm sure Eric will ask me some more questions after I get some things just out there about what we do. But one thing that is very key to our learning that is different than any other class, and we got it approved by our district to do this, is what we call our essential skills or employability skills. So this is actually 40% of our kids' grade. 40% of their grade are learning these 12 skills. And these are skills that I know that Eric works with the employability skills at the lower levels all the way up until high school. And we had ours that we created last year, and this year we collaborated with the ISD to come up with 12 that fit basically what their model was and also fit what we're doing in class. Oh, hello, sorry. We have automatic lights in a new building. Give me a minute.
That's okay.
I apologize for that. You don't move in the building and the lights go off. So, but communication is one aspect, collaboration and conflict resolution, responsibility, attentiveness, time management, adaptability. We talk about growth mindset and taking initiative with the students, their perseverance, the problem solving, critical thinking, innovation and creativity, leadership and behavior, and self-management. Now that sounds like a huge undertaking to teach all of those skills, but our students already know some of those skills. It's just reteaching them how to do that at a mature level. So what we do usually the first 4 to 6 weeks of class is we teach these with collaborative activities, a team building. We do a lot of things with groups that help these come out, and we teach kids proper communication. So email communication, proper speaking skills. We teach things about attentiveness. What does it look like to be an attentive student? What does it look like to active listen? Things like that that are used in the real world. Time management. Yeah, we have projects and stuff. So we set deadlines, we set constraints, we put things on things so kids have to manage their time well. We do have a section with self-management where kids actually evaluate themselves on their attendance, evaluate themselves on leaving class, on things that they have to do. All of 12 of these students actually evaluate themselves every week. So they give themselves a score of 1 to 4 on where they feel they were that week. And at the beginning of the year, we had them set some growth goals for themselves, things they wanted to work on and things that they thought they were really good at. And so we're hitting our 9 weeks right now. And at our 9 weeks, we're going to have them reflect at the end of this week on which skills that they felt like they did really well on, and go back and look at those goals they set at the 9 weeks to say, hey, I really improved on this, or hey, I still need to work on that. So this is kind of how our class starts. And it's based off of this that we come up and we use the design thinking process to actually look at what we're doing. I'm not going to read through all of this, but this is kind of how we looked at designing the class when we did it. Students are going to solve a problem. So example, how might we build community here at Wyoming High School? All of that will come up with a problem, which we've learned through the design thinking process, but they had to engage in some research, and then they had to go and through this whole method of finding empathy and doing some basis, not just on how students felt in our class and how they can build community, but what could the actual people outside say? What do the other students say? What do the parents say? What do the teachers say? And actually really building the empathy out there. Students actually do reports, they engage in presentations. Most of our kids, when they come to class, they know that they're going to be expected to collaborate on a regular basis, that they're going to be expected to present on a regular basis, and they're going to be expected to engage in a meaningful activity every time. Most likely, we look at as our kids, as they get out, they'll have a growth mindset that they can bring anywhere that they want. A lot of our kids, obviously, we know have a fixed mindset. They're told one thing, but until they actually learn that failure is an option, that they can grow and build from that, that's really key to what we do here. We've had challenges that we do that we fail at. We tried to do a voting challenge last year and get more express voting out. and the kids did not meet the time deadline, so we didn't get it out. Now, did we spend a lot of time, 2-3 weeks? Yes. But the kids realized that what we did, then we could reflect back on what we did well, what we didn't do well, and how we could improve and go back through that cycle that we do. We talk about restorative practices. Most of our kids, we talk about that. Some of you know about that. We really build a relationship with our kids, and you'll see positive behavior. I can tell you, people coming in are like, your kids are behaved. They're not off task. They're not doing stuff. It's because the design thinking model fits the mold of restoring and building that, because your teachers are collaborating. And what we like to do is, and Eric will tell you too, is we're facilitators of what's going on. We're not necessarily teaching, here's the method. Like, we teach the method, but we facilitate the process once they get the problems. We do have it as an ELA recovery credit. So I'm not an English teacher by trade, but when we wrote it, we started a team teacher. So we'd have an English teacher teaching with, I'm an elective teacher, but it could be taught with anybody else, but they can get English recovery for it by passing. That means there is written assignments, there is research assignments, there are things, but if they failed a semester of English 9 and they take this, they can get an English recovery. Now we do have a fine arts credit because I'm the elective, so kids can choose to take the ELA recovery or they can take the fine arts credit, because we do both. How we incorporate that is I take my business and my video background and my marketing background and I implement it into the class. So we do videos, we do presentations, we do a lot of business things in the classroom. And then we use the English teacher that actually is in the class to teach some of the English core, and we have an English rubric that we follow. Now, I can't take any credit basically for designing this. This is a group effort. Teacher that no longer works in our district, that works in another district, helped create it, along with a couple other teachers in this building and some district administration that really said, hey, we understand where you're coming from. We understand why you want to do this, and we're behind this, and we're going to support you with this. So this isn't something I came up with. The ISD was influential in it. The administration was influential. My friend Robin Granzow, who some of you may know or may not know, who is no longer here, was super influential in this. So we realized that when you do this, because we team taught it, 2 brains are better than 1 when we do this. And I can tell you now, as we plan our process with the English teacher that I'm teaching with right now, before we even start a project, we sit down and do the whole design thinking process around the whole unit. So we're starting another project in the next day or 2. And the project, the other teacher and I, we've already thought about what the sections are going to be that we're going to teach. And we have to replan. Like, it's not something that you can just give a box and say do, because the plans change, but the design thinking doesn't. The background of how you do it is the same. It's just what project you're going to tackle and what research are you going to give to the kids so they can build empathy, they can interview people, they can actually find out what the real problems are. And what we'll do in the team teaching now, maybe that won't work in every district to team teach it. It could be done individually, but I think kids see the relationship between the 2 teachers as something that they could actually, oh, I can learn something from one teacher and not the other teacher because they're presenting in different ways. So we really thought it was powerful to do that. And they can put up to 45 to 50 kids in our class because of the space that we have, and we can team teach it with up to that many if we need to. Just one last thing is something from the D school that I want to do, and then I'll let Eric go ahead and field some questions and we can talk. But there are challenges to design thinking because the journey is shifting the way one teaches. I'll tell you, I've taught for 18 years, and this has transformed the way I teach every single one of my classes. I've taken the design thinking into my marketing class. I've taught my Wolf Den class. I teach my news class that I have, and we've got to come up with ways on understanding what people want before we can actually just make a solution. So we have to go out and interview people and to talk to people. This new mindset, I mean, I'm a firm believer that education needs to be reformed with a mindset that's growth and reflection and failure. I 100% understand that I'm going to be in this business for a little while yet. And if I can help people grow and reflect and look back on what didn't work and say, hey, this does work and this can work. If we try something better, we can really have a bunch of designers on our hand, teachers that are designing just like Apple, just like Google, just like some of the big companies out there. Because this process of design thinking that you walk through is what the big companies use, and it's how they find their solutions. And it's really part of why I teach now, is because I get a chance to see the innovation from my kids and to see what they come up with. Because before, you know, I can sit there and I can lecture and give a worksheet and do all that kind of stuff. But to me, then that's not letting the kids explore and grow their mindset. And now my kids are coming up with solutions I would never even thought of. And we bring those solutions to administrators or to local community or to businesses that we're partnering with. And they've never thought of that either, because a 17-year-old has a different point of view than somebody who's 35 that's done the same job for 10, 15 years doing that. So I'm super excited about this. Eric can tell you I'm very passionate about this. I've been trying to get everybody in my building trained in it for years, and it's just a slow process. And I'm sure he'll talk a little bit more about design thinking too, because that's kind of his wheelhouse too. But I just want to, you know, I'm here to say that it's not going anywhere. It's going to be implemented. Businesses are doing it. That will lead into the education spectrum and how we teach our classes.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, John. Before I get into some of my own questions, I think it's behooves me, and you can put this in the chat, or you can just unmute and just say yes or no. I need to probably preface this by saying some people might have come on here saying, design thinking, what's that all about? So out of curiosity in the chat, or just unmuting quickly, how many of you are familiar? Let's do it this way. How about by a show of hands with a thumbs up? A thumbs up or thumbs down. Are you familiar with the design thinking process? Whether that be you've heard about it and you know a little bit about it, or you know a lot about it. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you don't know hardly anything. Thumbs, that's in between. Is that in between, Nicole? Okay, great, great. Anybody else? And you can do that also in the chat there or on your thing. So Helene and Jenny and Laura, where are you at with knowledge of the design thinking process? Just throw that in the chat, or you can do under the reactions like a thumbs up. Oh, I realize there's no thumbs down, but I thought there was. Okay, thumbs down from Laura. Okay, so you're not familiar with it. That's, I mean, in a way, that's great. This is a good opportunity for you to hear a little bit more about it. So for those who have not heard about this process, most of you, and I got a couple thumbs down or not too familiar, fantastic. Most of you probably have heard of PBL, project-based learning or problem-based learning. This process is very, very similar. There's a lot of overlap. The difference, as John mentioned, like businesses have been using this. So actually, I taught this in the very first session that John was a part of back 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't know how many. One of the teachers said, hey, don't use the term project-based learning because, like, you know, kids don't like that or teachers don't like that. Use design thinking, use that phrase. Why? And the reason is because this is what businesses are using. So he just thought that was a good fit because it helps to show some credibility for that. But really, in a bigger picture, we're starting to see this in the education world as well. The biggest difference between design thinking and a project-based learning or problem-based learning environment is this sense of empathy. And I'm not going to go through all the steps today, but there's empathy, and then you define a problem, and then you ideate around a problem, and then you prototype something or build something out, and then you test it. But this idea of empathy is putting your user first. A quick example of that is a teacher in John's class, the very first session. She was a journalism and a yearbook teacher. So she taught yearbook, and she says, oh, I kind of already do some of this stuff. So I think, but when she was done with it, she said it blew her mind because she realized my kids have been developing a yearbook year after year after year, and they've designed the yearbook that they wanted. And for the first time, I sent my kids out to go start polling other kids in the school to find out what kind of yearbook they wanted. Think about that, how transformational that is when you're teaching students that you're not designing or building something around what you want, but you're building for somebody else, and you're having to understand what their needs are, their passions, the struggles that they're dealing with. So this building empathy is great from a educational standpoint in general, like John mentioned, restorative practices, PBIS, it fits really well with all those things. But the great thing is too, it also fits with all these skills he was talking about. So I just wanted to give you a little big picture about that. And if you're interested in learning more, I do have another session around design thinking, from 2 years ago. So I can give you a link later to look at one that we did with an elementary teacher from a few years back. So, but what I wanted to do is just take a couple minutes, and maybe John can give us some insights on this. John, you shared, and if at any point you have questions, please jump in. But John, you had shared that it's transformed the way you teach. And I remember you talking to you about Robin, your former partner, doing this, said like when she learned this process, she was out actually in a community. I think she was sitting on a school board or something like that. And she was taking that and applying it in things outside of school because it was just a real world process. What would you say are some of the best byproducts of doing this type of teaching as opposed to a traditional sit and get, or even doing some projects, but not a design thinking folks on us, what have been some of the best byproducts from the students and that you've noticed yourself in your teaching?
I think one of the biggest thing is the collaboration. Like, to get students actively involved, sometimes it's like pulling teeth, but when you put them in a setting where they kind of not are forced, but they get the opportunity to share their ideas, then they feel validated, and they also feel that they can be heard by a smaller group of people. In a group of 30, raising your hand, it kind of isolates you. In a group of 4, if you're in a room and you're facing each other, it makes your voice heard and makes kids collaborate a little bit easier. I mean, we switched groups today. We've been working with the same group for 7-8 weeks. And within 5 minutes, these kids were already collaborating together, and they were already engaged with people that they've seen in class, but they don't necessarily know well. But that collaboration aspect is not like anything else, because you can teach it very easily because you have kids looking right at one another, and we're just facilitating the process. We're not lecturing. We're just having them engage in that process and watching their creative juices flow. And what I can tell you is we do a reflection at the end of every semester. And a lot of kids what they say is, I really learned how to collaborate, and I really learned to respect others' opinions, because they realized that they heard something different from somebody. Doesn't mean it made it wrong, but they might have had a fixed mindset of, oh, I only vote Democratic, for example, and they go that, but then they heard the other side of point of view where someone was never taught what their rights at 18 were to vote and what that looks like and what people believe in. So I think that understanding, and Eric won't say this, but this teaches empathy among students. And this teaches kids to understand who each other are and their backgrounds, which is only going to prepare them for the workforce. So to help them better understand their job, or better understand their college professors, or better understand their college classmates.
Awesome. And I want to point out a couple of things, and then I want to give time for questions, because hearing from his lights on out again, hearing from some of you in the chat saying that you kind of know a little bit, I want to make sure you get your questions asked, because you probably don't know what you don't know. But I do wanted to two things I wanted to point out. You just finished up a project, and I got a chance to come back and watch his students. Well, some of his students weren't there because they were having doing SATs, but they were the students had prepped this. They did a college fair, and so Jon gave his students an edict. Okay, how might we set up a college fair for the school, for the seniors? And so that class was tasked with building out. Jon and his teammate and partner gave some parameters, like, here's some things we're looking for, here's some things you need to have, here's something. But the kids own that project, like from start to finish. How do you feel like, did you get a chance to do some reflection with the kids? And how do you feel like the kids, what was their response after this first big project to say in terms of owning something from beginning? And what was their responses in terms of beyond the communication with each other? What was some of the responses for them about, like, did it feel real to them?
Yeah, I think so. He's mentioning that our juniors had the PSAT. So our juniors and seniors both planned it, but the seniors executed the day. But one thing that Logan and I, who's my team teacher now, is we weren't looking at the day as a whole as success. We were looking at the process. So we had the kids reflect back on the last 3.5 weeks of the process. And the responses we heard were basically, this is nothing we've done before. This is something that's new. It's innovative. It's something that I actually get to see results from. So the hard work, and I'll just give an example, a prime example that Eric got to see. We were going to just say, okay, we'll invite colleges, they'll show up. But the kids defined, after we did our how might we, they defined there might be a different how might we, because they built empathy. And one of the groups found that really what our students need to do is hear from previous students. They need to hear what the college experience is like outside of just showing a college rep. And so they created a student panel. And so we had one gym with college fair, and then we had one whole gym full of just 7 students that came back. And my principal and the curriculum director and even the students said it was so powerful to hear that a kid had a 1.7 in high school, and now they're on the dean's list because they actually took their time management skills and they grew from that as a freshman, and they grew and developed. And there's kids that, one kid's on there is going for her master's right now. She's 10 years out of our high school working on her master's, and she led the discussion. Like, she had no problem leading the discussion because she's been in business and worked in business now. But some of the kids that were still there were still in college. There was 2 kids that were still in college, and they said, this is one thing we can give back to you to show you that we were in your shoes and we still don't have it all figured out, but we've learned a lot along the way. And so that one little idea just exploded. And the kids thinks, I mean, anybody that would talk to you about the college fair would say the student panel was one of the most powerful things that students could hear from, was from
And
classmates.
that was their idea, you're saying?
That was their idea, that we had nothing to do with that. We were just going to throw some tables out for some colleges, but we ended up splitting it half and half. So the kids rotated after an hour
Awesome.
and got to hear those kids.
So, and I want to, again, I want to be sensitive to time, but the kids who came up with this after this was over, reflecting on that, it was their idea. What was their like take on this? Like, oh, this was our idea and we saw it come to fruition. Was there a sense of ownership of that? Like, did the kids, like you said, it's not like anything that they've gotten. Did they feel like it felt real to them? It felt like they learned more as a result of that? And what was the kids' take on, like, we put that together and like, oh, that worked really well, or that didn't work really well?
Yeah, we actually had the principal come back the next day after the fair and speak on the actual fair. And those kids that designed that experience were so excited. Like, because 2 of the 3 were not there because they were there, but they got to see pictures and got to see a little bit of video. And they were like, man, if we wouldn't have done this, a bunch of students wouldn't have been reached. And the principal said there might be 2 or 3 students that heard something today in the student panel that if they wouldn't have gone, they wouldn't know college is an option for them. And so the kids really took some ownership and said, hey, you know, what we did was pretty cool. And what we did is real life, and it did change some kids' lives.
And I want to share too, this is a side anecdotal story, but another teacher who come through this process, for those who are like, yeah, this sounds great, it's fun, but how do we meet standards through this? Or is academic success going to come by doing this, or is this just a lot of projects? I did have a teacher come through one of my trainings, and she did she was a science teacher in 8th grade, and she had their kids doing something on bones and muscles and things like that. And the kids did projects, and I'll be completely honest, some of the projects were not very good. I'll just be honest. The kids designed projects, trying to solve, like, hey, how do we help people who have an injury to be able to do and be able to continue on even with the injury? And kids were coming up with like these ideas that were like just so outlandish, but that's part of the point, right? It didn't matter how bad the ideas were. Back to what you had said, it wasn't about the success of the process or the project itself, but it's the process. Here's the cool thing. The kids took tests, their academic tests, after this unit was done. The teacher said every single kid passed the test, and their scores reflected better than some of the other teachers in the same grade level. So not only are the kids engaged and learning and excited about what they're learning, but it's showing academically. So I want to give just a couple of seconds, because I do have to do a wrap up, but are there questions? And I know you might not know what you don't know, but I want to give a chance to ask for anybody out there to ask any questions that you might have, knowing that you probably don't know a lot about design thinking. Okay, no, I'm trying to be patient. Jenny had said, what an awesome thing for those kids organizing and attending that at college fair. It's awesome. I do have, then I will follow up with this question, because this is unique to your class, and then we'll wrap it up here. John, last question when it comes to the essential skills. I call them employability skills. Some people call them life skills or soft skills. You make a concerted effort in your class to zero in on these skills. You've taught this now your 3rd time, I think, through doing this class. Would you say that students, in comparison to the rest of the students in the building, or maybe even to the rest of your classes, how do you feel like these students grow in these essential skills that employers are looking for to be career ready? Those are the employability skills, or the essential skills employers continually tell me this is what we're looking for. Would you say that these kids are growing in these particular skills in a way that maybe they're not in other classes?
I think that because we hold them to accountability of it, where they have to evaluate themselves each week, and then we every 9 weeks do a reflection, I think kids take more time to reflect on their attitudes, their behavior, to reflect on their collaboration, their initiative, attentiveness. Like, we can easily say, like, if we're teaching a section or trying to do some research, hey, you know, this is part of your essential skills to be attentive. Like, we need you guys fully engaged here to do that. I think the students really understand that the essential skills are life skills, that they are something they're going to take on and they're going to bring forth. I know when we taught the class previous years, some of the kids would say, yes, the essential skills were tedious to do, but because I did them, now I can use them in my other classes. Now I can say, well, I'm not collaborating well because the fact is I have a fixed mindset and I need to have a growth mindset and open up. Or, hey, I'm not really attentive. Why is that? And they'll take a time to self-reflect on them and say, well, maybe I didn't have breakfast this morning, or maybe I didn't, but they take that time to self-reflect. And to teach a high school kid that, for me, and even teach a middle school or elementary kid that, is something that's going to help them later on in life. Because I'm a business teacher and I get talk to kids all the time when they graduate. And they said, if I would have learned these things, which are the essential skills we're teaching, they would be better prepared for the workforce and for the career that they're in right now.
Good. All right, Matt, I would like to talk further about this, but I want to be sensitive to the time. I say we do this in 35 to 40, and we're sitting at about 36 minutes. So I'm going to share my screen and get us to a wrap up. If anybody has any questions, I'm hoping it's okay, John, to share your contact information, but I can get you John's email if you'd like to follow up with them. Oh, it's up here on the screen right now. As far as reaching out, if you have questions about design thinking, or you can reach out to me. Just wanted to share a couple of upcoming PDs for those who are in the Grand Rapids area. Our next Educator Spotlight, or for those who are not, these Educator Spotlights are all going to be virtual, so you can attend these at any point. We do record these, so if you know somebody who you think, oh, they really need to watch this, they can still get a sketch for it. You can sign up for this on demand through our PD Hub, and still get credit for it. Our next Educator Spotlight will be November 14th. It is Nicole Decro, a counselor, and she'll talk about career-focused counseling. Her job is specifically around building career readiness for the students in her building. So that is her specific role. And then on December 5th, we have three senior English teachers, ELA teachers, and then we'll talk about teaching English language arts through a career and college readiness lens. They have revamped their English 12 course specifically to talk about how to embed career readiness in that. And some other opportunities that are coming up. October 20th, we have another career readiness network for those in the Grand Rapids area. That's going to be actually held at Davenport University. So check out our PD Hub if you're interested in checking that out. Those in the area as well, I have a program I run called Educators in Industry. It's a full day event. You can get 6 sketches for attending, but it's for counselors, it's for classroom teachers, it's for administrators to come and check out. We actually basically do a field trip for educators, and we go out to local businesses and just hear from employers to talk to them. Hey, what are the skills you're looking for? What are the jobs that are out there right now that we don't know about, and so on and so forth. And a few more other ones. October 27th is the whys and the hows of EDP. November 15th, we have an Educators in Industry specifically for administrators. So if you know of any administrators, please feel free to pass that along to them. And then November 15th, we have Navigating College Prep. There's another online program. So yes, and John just threw his email address up in there. Thank you. And so last couple of things here. If you're interested in sharing something awesome that you're doing around career readiness, or you want to nominate somebody else to be a spotlight guest, you can go ahead and use this link at the bottom, bit.ly/spotlight guest. Send it, and it'll be a little form. You can say recommend somebody, or you can recommend yourself to be a guest, and we can check that out and see if there's a fit there. And then finally, in order for you to get your sketch, you need to fill out a survey at this link, and we can put this in the chat here in just a second. It is bit.ly/ESS for Educator Spotlight Series -sketch 2022-23. bit.ly/ESS-sketch 2022-23. And then you'll need the 6-digit code 921476. 921476. And that's a unique code. Once you to go to fill out the survey, and I'll say, hey, what was today's session? And you'll put that in, and it'll be the code for today's session. Again, I'll put that in the chat in just a second. And with that, I want to say thank you, everybody, for attending. Again, my name is Eric Kelleher. My email address is at the bottom. If you want some more career readiness resources, you can go to kenisd.org/career readiness. We'll be happy to share the resources that we have with you. Again, if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. In the meantime, I want to say thanks to everybody for attending today, and have a great afternoon. Thanks so much.